Hi everyone. Today we are presenting on the book Unusual Billionaire by Saurabh Mukherjee sir. Myself Pranjal Dudara along with Ashvi, Sadadiwala, Mokshil Shah, Adarsh Tanay, Shaurya Jain, Dhruvi Shah, Parth Gandhi. This book is not about the billionaires in the traditional sense. It's about the kind of Indian companies that quietly create enormous wealth over long periods of time. It focuses on businesses that have delivered consistent growth for 10 to 20 years through different market cycles, competitions, and economic changes. The author explains that these wealth creators are unusual because only a very small number of firms are able to scale profitability, maintain high capital efficiency, building strong governance, and stay disciplined for decades. Greatness. What do you mean by greatness? Greatness is the framework for identifying enduring financial performance explained with the twin filter in this book. The first filter author used is outpacing the economy. In India, the economy grows at around 14 to 15% nominal GDP growth every year. So if a company grows only because the company is growing, it is not very special. That is why minimum sales growth of 10% is taken as a benchmark. If a company grows faster than this level, it shows that the company is gaining market share and not moving with the economy. The second filter is exceeding the cost of capital. A company creates a real value only when it earns more return than what it costs to raise money. In India, the cost of capital, WACC, weighted average cost of capital, is roughly around 15%, which includes the risk-free return from government bonds around 8% plus extra return investor expects for taking risk. Therefore, if a company is ROCE about 15%, it means the company is truly creating the value for its investors. For banking sector, the business model is different. So instead of ROCE, we look return on equity ROE for the banks. The filters are ROE about 15%, loan growth about 10%, which show both profitability and growth. Business grow through up cycles and down cycles, and good companies are those that perform well across the full business cycle, not just during good years. This approach evaluates performance over 10 years period, which helps identifying companies with long-term strength. The market strategies, next slide. The market strategies used is shifting the core business model. If we look at companies like Axis Bank and Asian Paints, a common pattern emerges. They focus on gradual disciplined evolution, not sudden transformation. Axis Bank initially built a strong base in corporate banking. Once systems, risk control, and customer understanding were in place, it slowly expanded into retail loans and deposits. This reduced dependence on single segment and improved long-term stability, a key principle discussed in Unusual Billionaire. Now, Asian Paints follow a similar approach. It moved from being a mass paint manufacturer to a provider of premium and occasional home decor solution. Its real competitive advantage lies not just in product, but in its deep dealer network, strong brand recall, and strict working capital discipline, which are extremely difficult to replicate. Now, the second strategy is self-disruption. What do you mean by self-disruption? Which a company changes itself before the market forces it to change. HDFC Bank is a good example of this approach. In the beginning, the bank mainly worked with the large and trusted corporate clients, which helped it raise funds at lower cost and build a strong base. Instead of expanding too fast, HDFC Bank slowly entered retail banking and grew city by city. This careful and planned growth helped the bank control risk and achieve long-term stability. The third strategy is entering into new geographies and segments. Marico first focused on its core business and exited activities that were not important. It then made long-term investment and entered the men grooming and personal care segment. Marico also expanded into international markets such as Bangladesh, which helped the company reach more customers and increase its market share in a steady and sustainable way. Now, Dhruvi will present the next slide with different market strategies used in this book.
Thanks for the overview. Moving forward, I'll focus on two key aspects of market strategy: internal focus and market expansion. Starting with internal focus, the foundation lies in understanding the consumption patterns across different income segments. Strong companies clearly differentiate between premium and mass market consumers. and design their products, pricing, and distribution accordingly. At the same time, they remain very clear about their core business and avoid unnecessary diversification. Many successful firms even exit non core segments to sharpen focus. For example, Marico demerged Kaya as it did not align with its core FMCG strength, while Jockey focused almost entirely on innerwear and leisurewear. Instead of expanding into unrelated categories, once the core business is strong, companies focus on improving operational efficiency. This is where backward integration becomes very important. By producing key inputs in house instead of relying on third party suppliers, companies can reduce cost, improve quality control, and ensure supply chain stability. It also protects them from external shocks like price volatility or supplier disruption. For example, when companies like Jockey brought parts of manufacturing in house, it improved margins and made operations more reliable. Along with this, financial discipline plays a critical role. Many market leaders follow strict credit policies, ensuring faster cash collection, lower receivables, shorter working capital cycles, allow the same capital to be reused multiple times, improving return on capital and enabling profitable growth without excessive fundraising. Moving to market penetration and expansion, a major strength of leading companies is their deep distribution networks. By investing in strong dealer and distributor relationships, companies gain superior market reach, especially in remote areas. Over time, this network becomes very difficult to replicate. Sarah is something that is coming to my mind for an example. Strengthen relationship with top leaders and reduce dependence on wholesalers, making dealers a major revenue driver. Beyond dealers, companies also focus on key influencers in the value chain. Astral Poly recognized that plumbers, not end consumers, drive buying decisions for bikes. By engaging plumbers through training and incentives, Astral created strong demand pull and durable competitive advantage. Finally, many companies accelerate growth through partnerships, acquisitions, which enables faster entry into new markets. They could learn new products or technologies without building everything from scratch. Now, firms like Marico, ITC, Berger Paints used this approach to diversify revenue and scale efficiency. Now, in today's world, technology acts as a strong enabler across all the strategies. Companies increasingly use this technology for demand forecasting, consumer analytics, or risk management, whether it be banks like HDFC and Axis Bank, who uses this data for credit assessment, or FMCG companies like ITC or Marico, used for consumption trends, digital capabilities, which have become a key differentiator. Now, technology not only improves efficiency, but also helps company respond faster to the changing market dynamics. And if we take a step back and connect all these points, most large cap or market leading companies share a few common traits: risk management, use capital efficiently, build powerful brands, and support them with deep distribution networks. Now, by combining internal discipline, smart expansion, with technology led decision making, this company consistently outperform their competitors. So, to conclude, market strategy is concluded with strong growth, high ROCE, and amazing IBAS network, which would help them sustain long term growth. Now, for understanding in detail, I would like to pass this slide to my teammate, Ashvi.
Hello, I would talk about the innovation topic. So, I will start by saying about a company known as Ancient Paint. Ancient Paints, the power of early tech adoption, the learnings. Don't wait for technology to become a standard before adopting it. By using mainframes and ERP systems early, Ancient Paints landed the data driven demand forecasting is the ultimate weapon against the inventory waste. They proved that the supply chain isn't just about moving goods, it's about moving information faster than your competitors. Second, Esther. Uh, in the community market, authenticity is your highest value. Esther taught us that we can eliminate our trust deficits by embedding technology like anti counterfeit barcoding directly into logistics chain. They also showed that the best way to innovate is source global technology but validate it through local testing before manufacturing. Third, IDFC banks. True innovation requires a rock solid foundation. IDFC Bank's success tells us that digital products like ZEP not only works because they sit on the top of the real-time, robust core banking system. The lesson: build the system first, then build the product. Now, I want to talk about Marico. Be willing to disrupt your own model. This firm showed that by maintaining a strong regularly revised MIC for demand forecasting, you can spot the need for massive shift. Now, moving on to tints to plastic before the market forces you to. Now, I want to talk about next slide. Next, I want to talk about Burger Paints. Selling solutions, not just products. The customers does not want paint; they want a painted room. Burgers Express Painting taught us that addressing customers' pain points like the speed and convenience is more valuable than the product itself. By placing the machines at the dealer level, they also learned that customization is a key driver of premium sales. Access Bank, the value of relationship depth. Use data to bundle and segment. Access Bank taught us that the asset quality improves when you use an in-house sales force to understand the customer's specific needs. The goal isn't just to sell a product; it's to increase the total value of customer by bundling services like insurance with salary amounts. Jockey. Global designs must meet local test. Jockey's leadership in a masterclass in localization. The lesson here is that you can take the best global technology, but if you don't adapt it to the specific preference and habits of Indian customers, it won't stick. FMCG packaging firm. Packaging is a guardian of brand quality. By designing an anti duplication bottle, they learned that you can use physical design to solve the market problems and build a consumer trust. Simultaneously, trust is an asset that must be protected by design. Now, the biggest takeaway from these unusual billionaires is that there is no shortcut to excellence. Whether it is through Asian paints, uh, Astral, or Jockey, localization, the common thread is relentless. Thank you. And next, I would like Shaurya Jain to continue.
Hello, today I will share my analysis on how companies turn their problems into well built strategies. There is a simple idea behind this. Everyone faces problems, but what truly matters is how you respond to them. Before independence, India's paint industry was completely dominated by global players, as the paint industry required a lot of operational leverage, networking capital, and that too with foreign competition. It was a big problem for us, but when World War II started, the coin flipped. Paint imports were banned, and that led to a major problem for country. But Asian Paint used it very well by setting up customer base, dealer network, etc. When foreign brands returned, Asian Paint developed itself to compete with them and moved aggressively yet organically. Ironically, today Asian Paint is facing a similar kind of battle again. It is distribution and pricing pressure. New players are entering the market by aggressively targeting dealers with higher margins, free grammage, and incentives. To defend its dealer network, Asian Paint is pushing higher volumes but making less profit per liter. So while volumes are growing, effective pricing power is weakening. Let's move to the second company, Saffola. What started as a consumer brand slowly turned into a farm chain monopoly for its competitors. Sunflower is not a stable crop. If farmer won't see benefit, they will stop growing it. This makes the entire supply chain extremely fragile. Marika understood the risk, so instead of depending on open market, it moved to contract farming and vertical integration. The company provided farmers with seeds, assured prices, and technical support. In return for committed supply as a result, most farmers ended up selling only to Marico, not because they were forced to, but because it was economically feasible for them. Astral pipes. In India, when it comes to construction and plumbing, homeowners do not take decisions firmly on their own. They rely on people who deal with them daily. Every day, Astral Pipes use this trust dynamic very wisely by focusing on plumbers as their real customer. They trained and certified them, especially because CPVC pipe were new from them too. So when plumbers got trained and certified, they always used to recommend SL. Now let's move to second slide. Axis Bank deployed their capital heavy in corporate loans. It booked profit, but it was very fragile at the same time because one bad debt for company would have converted their tails, and that is what happened with their NPA cycle. When Axis Bank moved their strategy from one big loan to hundreds of small loans that diversified their loan book, now even if someone would have defaulted, the amount would have been less and system would have hold. Bulger paints. Bulger paints, fake, Bulger paints faced two problems. One was culture and one was capital. They turned their capital problem into an opportunity. To solve funding constraints, they shifted from a strategy of growing factories to outsourcing production. This reduced the amount of capital they needed to invest. Yes, margins were slightly lower because of outsourcing, but the trade off was worth it. Because in a business like paints, heavy operating leverage can easily destroy a company. When demand fails, Berger still used to grow. Flexibility over fixed cost. It made Berger more resilient to problem, which later became an opportunity. Earlier, Berger Paints was slow and family run, but with long-sighted thinking, they brought in professional management. Because of this, decision making was became faster, accountability came in, and transparency too. Eventually, changed the company's entire growth trajectory. Now, I will hand over to the next presenter, Parth Gandhi.
So hello everyone. Today I'll be taking brand and discuss how this seven company excelled on this front. Now, most people think that branding is about logos, celebrities, or ads. That's incorrect. Branding is about only one thing, what comes in customers' mind at the exact moment they have to choose among similar products. The brand you are seeing here didn't win because of one campaign. They won because they systematically build recall, aspiration value, trust over time. As Asian Paint present here is one of the clearest example of consistency. Across the parent brand and sub-brands like Royal, Apex, etc., the message stays similar. Advertisement never stopped. It evolved with the consumer, but never broke the continuity. The long-term consistency made Asian Paints the default choice in the category. Asian Astor applied the same thing on the pipes. It simplified product education using dummy models to explain CPVC benefits, which removed complexity from low interest category. Then they drove recall using high visibility media like uh, TV, buses, and auto rickshaws, ensuring the brand stayed visible even when consumers are not actively shopping for it. Page industry took a very deliberate aspirational route. They position themselves in mid-premium space using international image. The critical move was discipline on pricing by avoiding discounts and ensuring that most of their sales happen at MRP. Page protected brand memory and long-term equity. They choose brand strength over short-term volume, which is why brand is stayed premium till now. Axis Bank shows here branding can be build or rewrite perception. This shift from UTI Bank to Axis Bank was designed to break the PSU's association and a signal a modern private sector entity. Axis Bank unified the brand across the business, use youth communications, and adopt digital platforms early. The goal wasn't noise, it was to replace old mental association with new one. Moving towards the next slide, this slides explain how brand converts trust into long-term market dominance. HDFC did opposite of what Axis Bank did. They did not use celebrities, no hype was created. The brand was purely built on reliability, strong processes, and consistent services. As a result, HDFC is considered one of the most valued brand without outspending competitors. Moving towards Marico, Marico shows how trust can be scaled. Parachute stood for purity and Saffola stood for health. When Marico entered adjacent categories like advanced hair care and masala oats, consumer transfer trust naturally because the extension stayed true to the original promise. Finally, Berger and Page highlighted the power of point of sales. Berger positioned itself as a reliable value for money to close the gap with leader. Page dominated visibility, with Jockey occupying the most shelf and wall space. When brand controls the customer, what customer sees at the moment of choice, selection becomes automatic. The key takeaways from this brand is recall comes from consistency, aspiration comes from discipline, and trust become a growth engine. Strong brand don't try to persuade consumer every time. They themselves become the easiest choice when it actually matters. Now I would like to others to continue to architecture.
So I'll start briefly by explaining what we mean by architecture. So the architecture is basically how a company is designed on the inside, and that includes how decisions are made, who has power, how people are managed, and how leadership is structured. So this matters because even great businesses can fail if the internal structure of the company is weak. And so a strong architecture allows a company to scale smoothly, survive leadership changes, and perform consistently over decades, not just cycles, good cycles. So the first architecture slide focuses on governance and leadership. So across these companies, one common theme is professional management with promoters staying hands off. For example, Asian Paints and Berger Paints are fully run by professionals, while promoters focus on long-term direction instead of daily operations. So this gives management the freedom to execute without interference. And another key aspect, as we can see, is independent and strong boards. So Axis Bank is a great example. Its board has shown the ability to challenge even powerful chairmen, which is critical, especially in the banking business. Similarly, companies like Marico and Asian Paints maintain truly independent boards that guide long-term strategy, capital allocation, and leadership succession. And lastly, there is a clear focus on long-term succession planning. So instead of sudden leadership changes, companies like Marico and National Poly groom leaders gradually through mentorship and experience. So this ensures stability and continuity, even when senior leaders move on. So overall, strong governance reduces key person risk and allows these companies to think in decades rather than quarters. And moving on to the next slide. So the second slide looks at culture, which is often invisible, but it's extremely powerful. So many of these companies focus on empowering and retaining talent. So Asian Paints is known for giving young employees meaningful responsibility early in their careers. So this builds accountability and fast learning. And Axis Bank, on the other hand, shows very low senior level attrition. So many employees staying for decades. This shows a sign of trust and stability. And a strong theme across companies like Marico and Axis Bank is meritocracy over seniority. So performance is rewarded through variable pay, transparent appraisals, and ESOPs. So this creates fairness and keeps the employees motivated as well. And companies also invest in uh, employee well-being and skills. So Industries is a great example. It focuses on workforce training, multi-skilling, and strong labor relationships. So this leads to low attrition even in a high turnover industry. And Marico has also innovated in HR practices to maintain harmony at its factories. So in short, these companies treat people and culture as long-term assets and not costs. And now moving on to the next slide. So now moving from architecture to strategic assets. So strategic assets are basically advantages that competitors cannot easily copy. So these are things that take years or even decades to build. So while architecture ensures a company runs well internally, strategic assets protects the business externally by creating entry barriers and pricing power. So starting with Page Industries. Its biggest strategic asset is the exclusive long-term license for Jockey in India and the UAE. So this license has been renewed till 2030 and is backed by decades of promoter expertise with a brand, strong distributor economics, and a highly loyal customer base driven by consistent quality. So together, this makes Jockey extremely hard to replace. And then we have Axis Bank, whose strategic asset lies in its transaction banking franchise. So its wide branch and ATM network helps it build a large, stable savings and current account base through salary, government, and defense relationships. So this generates rich customer data, enabling cross-selling and risk management, while creating high switching costs. And finally, we have HDFC Bank, which combines scale, systems, and trust. So it's massive CASA base, deep customer data, and dominance in clearing and cash management embedded it deeply into India's financial system. And more importantly, its reputation with regulators and customers give it an advantage that cannot be replicated quickly. So these strategic assets built patiently over time create durable competitive moats that allow these companies to compound value consistently. And I would like to pass it over to Mokshil now.
Hello. So, as our presentation is based on The Unusual Billionaire by Saurabh Mukherjee, one of the key themes is long-term wealth creation also comes from strong moats, disciplined capital allocation, and shareholder wealth maximization. Strategic assets, ecosystem moats. These slides highlights that the strongest competitive advantage is when a company controls the value chain and just not sells a product. Asian Paints built a strong mold by investing in technology for forecasting and logistics, improving service quality, and expanding manufacturing capacity ahead of demand. Also, creating beyond growth paints through premium offerings and service models. Astral Poly built its moat by influencing the real decision maker, the plumbers. It created a plumber ecosystem and trained over 10,000 plumbers from 2005 to 2008, which helped drive recommendations and repeat demand. Marico strengthened distribution by building high distributor trust through systems like replacements and ordering support, making product experimentations easier. And HDFC Bank built an ecosystem advantage through transaction dominance and high switching costs, which supports a stable deposit franchise and long term ROE. The key takeaway from this slide is these firms win because they control the ecosystem and the customer. Moving on to the next slide. Capital allocation, principle one. Now the slides moves from moat creation to the real driver of compounding. What management does, this generated capital. The slide shows three high quality reinvestment directions. One, strengthen the core business. For Asian Paints, capital allocation is extremely consistent. Heavy investment in technology for forecasting and logistics and expanding manufacturing capacity ahead of demand. This is a hallmark of a compounding company. They reinvest before the opportunity becomes visible to everyone else. For Berger Paints, also capital is deployed towards capacity expansion, plant modernization, distribution strengthening, automation, and IT systems. So Berger's reinvestment improves consistency, reduces cost, and strengthens reach. Second, acquisition, but only prudent, ROC positive. Marico is your most important case study here because it shows capital allocation mistakes. The slides explicitly mention that large overseas acquisitions hurt ROCE. ROCE fell from 41% in FY 2008 to 17% in FY 2013. So Marico changed strategy. They paused after deals like Egypt, Vietnam, South Africa and shifted only small strategic acquisitions with management fit. Third, fund internal growth engines. Instead of chasing acquisitions, Marico used strong cash flow to fund brand extensions internally. Parachute Saffola. Page Industries CapEx depicts discipline plus asset. Like strategy page industry is also highlighted here. They focused CapEx mainly on final garmenting, in-house garment manufacturing, IT systems, training, infrastructure, R&D, and early on, they stayed asset light, leased land, outsourced, spinning, CapEx only in garmenting. This slide, the takeaway is the best companies deploy capital where it deepens the moat while protecting ROC. Moving on to the next slide. Now, the slide 3, it brings together how these companies convert operational excellence into shareholders' wealth. First, the capital deployment into high ROC opportunities. HDFC Bank deployed capital where risk-adjusted returns are highest, preferring retail cash management payments. They avoided low ROE home loans earlier and only increased exposure once RBI regulations reduced equity requirement. Second, raising capital from strength, HDFC Bank raised equity at 3.5 to 4.5x book value. Axis Bank raised equity during stress periods to strengthen balance sheet and support future growth. Third, balanced reinvestment. Without payouts, Page Industries maintained 55 to 60% dividend payout. HDFC Bank maintained 20 to 25% payout, even while reinvesting heavily. To conclude about these slides, these companies create wealth because they build moats and allocate capital with discipline, protecting ROCE and maximizing shareholders' returns. Now, to conclude, the unusual billionaire. It is not just about a successful Indian companies. It's really a book about how long-term excellence is built. The author shows that true business greatness isn't about one-time growth or lucky cycles. It comes from consistent revenue, growth, high return on capital, strong governance, and obsessive execution over decades. In fact, the book highlights how only a tiny fraction of companies can maintain this level of performance over 10 years, which makes these businesses truly unusual. The biggest takeaway for us is simple. Great companies don't win by extraordinary things once. They win by doing ordinary things exceptionally well repeatedly. So, whether we look at it as future business leaders or as investors, the book gives us one clear lesson. If we want real wealth and long term success, we should focus on quality, patience, and discipline, not noise and shortcuts. Thank you.